Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Vishnu Paramhamsa Parivraj Jai Ashatara Satashi Srimati Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai Prem Se Ko Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Jai Shri Krishna. All glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to Lord Sri Shri Guru Gauranga, all glories to Shri Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, where's the... Today we are reading from what's the verse we're reading from? Yeah. So it says 2 verses. I remember. I just forgot the verse. It says 4:11:24. Did you say? Yeah. Okay. Just trying to find the page. Okay. I just lost the page. I think I found it. Yes. Okay. This is the main. So there's 2 verses, but this verse doesn't have a purport. Okay. Nachaite putraka bhratur Nachaite putraka bhratur Hantaro dhanadhanuga Hantaro dhanudhanuga Vishargadhanayam Vishargadanayas-tatha Vishargadanayas-tata Pumso devim hi karanam Pumso devim hi karanam Prabhus Nachaite putraka bhratur Hantara dhanugadada Visharagadanayostata Pumso Devim Hikaranam Najete Putraka Bhratur Hantara Dhanudhanugaha Visargadanayostata Pumso Devim Hikaranam Najete Putraka Bhratur Antaradhanuga Vishargadanayostata Pumso Devim Hikaranam. Okay. Na, never. Cha, also. Ete, all these. Putraka, my dear son. Bratu, of your brother. Hantaraha, killers. Dhanada, of Kuvera. Anugaha, followers. Visharga, of birth. Adanayo, of death. Tata, my dear son. Pumsaha, of a living entity. Devam, the supreme. He, certainly. Karanam, the cause. Translation: my dear son, those yakshas who are descendants of Kuvera are not actually the killers of your brother. The birth and death of every living entity are caused by the Supreme, who is certainly the cause of all causes. So the next verse has the purport. I'll just read the Sanskrit and English and purport. Sa eva vishvam srijati sa eva vati hanticha athapi hiya anahankaran najyate guna karmabhi. Translation: the Supreme Personality of Godhead creates His material world, maintains it and annihilates it in due course of time. But because He is transcendental to such activities, He is never affected by ego in such action or by the modes of material nature. Purport: in this verse, the word anahankara means without ego. The conditioned soul has a false ego, and as a result of his karma, he gets different types of body in this material world. Sometimes he gets the body of a demigod, and he thinks that body to be his identity. Similarly, when he gets the body of a dog, he identifies himself with that body. But for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there is no such distinction between the body and the soul. Bhagavad Gita therefore certifies that anyone who thinks of Krishna as an ordinary human being is without knowledge of his transcendental nature and is a great fool. The Lord says, Na mam karmani limpanti. He is not affected by anything he does because he is never contaminated by the material modes of nature. That we have a material body proves that we are infected by the free modes of material nature. The Lord says to Arjuna, you and I have had many births previously, but I remember everything, whereas you do not. That is the difference between the living entity or conditioned soul and the Supreme Soul. The Super Soul, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, has no material body, and because he has no material body, he is not affected by any work. He executes. There are many Mayavadi philosophers who consider that Krishna's body is the effect of a concentration of the material mode of goodness, and they distinguish Krishna's soul from Krishna's body. The real situation, however, is that the body of the conditioned soul, even if he has a large accumulation of material goodness, is material, whereas Krishna's body is never material. It is transcendental. Krishna has no false ego, for he does not identify with the false and temporary body. His body is always eternal. He descends to this world in his original spiritual body. This is explained in Bhagavad Gita as Param Bhavam. The words Param Bhavam and Divyam are especially significant in understanding Krishna's personality. Om Gyanandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chaksur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So Hare Krishna. We just read an amazing, instructive purport by Srila Prabhupada, elaborating on the instruction of Swayambhuva Manu. So, Swayambhuva Manu, he's considered to be, he's a Mahajan, he's the foremost of the Manus, the father of mankind. He's the lawgiver of humanity. So he's speaking to Dhruva Maharaj. As we know, Dhruva Maharaj he's on this warpath of killing the Yakshas. The Yakshas are followers of Kuvera. They're not demigods, but they're below demigods. They're between jivas and demigods. And they have this type of mastery of mystic illusion. They can create things that can make you see crazy things which are not real, which happened early on with Dhruva Maharaj. So anyway, he's slaughtering them en masse. And generally, according to Dharma Shastras, it's explained, when he talks about the 6 types of regressors, it says, you can kill someone who's tried to kill you or tried to kill your family members. But that principle is not that you go and kill anyone randomly. You kill the people responsible. And the person who's responsible to do that has to be a Kshatriya, because he's qualified to render that justice. So anyway, he's killing all these people en masse. There's anyone who comes, he's indiscriminately killing them. So it's like what happens in current war. You just you blast a missile, hits a building or hits a population area, and it kills everyone indiscriminately. And now people pass it off as collateral damage. That's the word to make it okay. But, so anyway, so Dhruva Maharaj should know more because he's a perfected soul. He's seen Krishna. So he's a pure devotee. He gained the respect of Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu personally appeared before him and gave him his darshan. So he gained everything. So he had, why did he come under this illusion? Why is he acting contrary to his dharmic duties? So this Swayambhuva Manu says to him, my dear son, the Yakshas who are descendants of Kuvera are not actually the killers of your body. The birth and death of every living entity are caused by the Supreme, who is certainly the cause of all causes. Then in the next verse, he says that Supreme Personality, but God, He creates everything. He maintains everything, unites everything in due course of time, but it's transcendental. So we remember the verse from Brahma Samhita. It says, Ishwara Parama Krishna, Sachit Ananda Vigraha, Anadir Adir Govindaha, Sarva Karana Karanam. That Krishna is the supreme cause of all causes. Everything happens with his permission. So Prabhupada says that not a blade of grass moves without his permission. So this is not random. If you think about it, why is Dhruva Maharaj under this? So Dhruva Maharaj coming under this is Krishna's plan. Just like Arjuna was a perfected soul. He's an eternal associate of Lord Krishna. He came under illusion when before the battlefield of Kurukshetra. But how? We understand that pure devotees generally come under the sway of Yogamaya, which is the spiritual potency of the Lord. So sometimes they come under this illusion, but it's not the same illusion. It's not the same substance as the material illusion, which is Mahamaya, which makes you totally act contrary to your identity of being Krishna's servant. So Dhruva Maharaj, he has no issue knowing Krishna is the Supreme Lord, he's his servant, but still he's doing something that's contrary, and he's forgetting the higher principle that Krishna is the cause of all causes. So this verse, it makes a very sweeping declaration that Krishna is the source of everything.
Everything happens because of him. And Prabhupada uses a very interesting word. He says the word anna ahankar. Now we know what ahankar means. Ahankar means false ego. It can also mean ego. But he calls Krishna anna ahankar. So it's like a prefix that negates the word ahankar, right? Just like you have in Sanskrit you have the word a that negates the meaning of the word. So in this way it negates it. It means that when Krishna creates, when he maintains, when he dissolves the material universes through his energies, he never becomes attached to his identity. He doesn't become contaminated by it. He doesn't take on this, he doesn't become proud of it. He remains in equilibrium. He remains the same person. And the example is given of the sun. The sun purifies everything, right? It purifies sewage water, it evaporates it, and it purifies it, and it falls down on the earth as rainwater, and it also picks up fresh water and rain and water from the sea. But the sun is never contaminated by this process. So Krishna is like that. Krishna is always transcendental. He's always aloof from the material universe. So therefore, his identity does not get contaminated. So the jiva, even though we come from Krishna, because we are like like a drop of the ocean. So we're like a drop of Krishna's energy, but we are not similar in quantity and quality. We unfortunately have the tendency to come under the sway of material universe, under material energy. So I was just thinking, if you look throughout history, we see people who have achieved great things due to their karma, and they become proud, and people reinforce it, say this happened because of this person. If he wasn't there, this thing wouldn't happen. This amazing thing, we talk about electrical cars. We talk about the computer. We talk about the internet. We talk about so many wonderful things, right? The implication when people say that is he is the cause. If he didn't come about, nothing would have come about, And as a result, that person becomes proud. He starts thinking, you know what? It was because of me, But what the jiva doesn't realize is that ability in him, that intelligence, that remembrance, that forgetfulness, it comes from Krishna. Everything comes from Krishna. It belongs to Krishna. So how can we become proud? We should become humble. So this misunderstanding leads to karma. It leads to entanglement in the material world. So the Lord, even though he doesn't get affected by this, but we can. So this actually reveals the principle of Nirgun Shakti. Nirguna means no material qualities. So it's divine activity that transcends the modes of nature. So let's think of this. So sometimes we can think of it like this, like an actor. He takes on a role. Like we have these superhero films. So you get this person, he plays the role of a superhero, and he knows he's not a superhero. He knows there's all these visual effects, there's all these stunt people, there's all these different things that's showing him to be doing this, but he's not really doing it. He doesn't go home and starts thinking, I'm actually this person. I'm going to fly, I'm going to jump off a building and start flying. No, because he's not going to do that, because he knows he's not that person. He's aloof from it. So I remember when I watched this superhero film, and then it was I was like 8 years old, and I saw this person, and my mind was like, he is that person, And then I saw him in another film, and he was getting beaten up by some random guy. I'm like, why is he not using his superpowers? And it was because he was playing a different role, right? So it's like, and it's like, so this is the thing. So materially, we get conditioned by our identity. So Krishna is like that actor. He doesn't get. And that's really why Krishna talks about karma yoga in the Bhagavad Gita. He says that, do your duty, or offer the results to me. He says to Arjuna, Mam anusmara yudhyacha. Think of me and fight. The results don't belong to you. The ability is not coming from you. It's coming from me. Don't be attached to this. He gives the ladder. He goes from karma yoga to jnana yoga to dhyana yoga to bhakti yoga. I had this really interesting way. It's kind of like it's not really taught in the Gita, but we can use it. Helps us appreciate it, because we also go through these stages. So we do an activity like let's say an activity like going to the kitchen, cutting potatoes, like for the deed to cook prasad, right? So we're absorbed in that activity. We're doing that activity. In the background, we know Krishna's there, right? But he's not prominent. The most prominent element is the karma. Then as we become more advanced in Krishna consciousness, we start to cultivate knowledge of Krishna, the metaphysics, the science behind bhakti. So now we're doing that activity, we're cutting the potatoes, but now we're doing it with knowledge of Krishna. Again, it's not mature, but the element of jnana becomes prominent. As we advance more, then we come to the Dhyana Yoga platform. Dhyana Yoga is when you're thinking of Krishna, right? So now you're doing the activity, you're cutting the potatoes, you're doing it with knowledge of Krishna, but now you're thinking of Krishna. So that's more advanced. And then you come to the final level, which is Bhakti Yoga, where you're doing the activity, you're doing it with knowledge of Krishna, you're thinking of Krishna, but more importantly, you're doing it for Krishna. You're doing it for Krishna. And that's the most important element. So we go through these levels. That's why Krishna teaches this. So it's very interesting. So one thing I was quite interested in was the role of like Prabhupada said that Krishna, Prabhupada says in the purport and Swami Prabhupada says in the verse, he says Krishna is the supreme controller. He's doing everything. So the reason why he's saying this is that because it's reinforcing our identity that we are not the Lord and Master of material nature. Krishna is. So what is our position then? Our position in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it says very clearly, Jivera Srup Hoya Krishnera Nitya Das, that I am the eternal servant of Krishna. I have no other identity. When your identity is fixed as a servant of Krishna, then everything goes very nicely. So we know about the subtle body, right? So you have the ego, because the ego is not like arrogance. It means your identity. Below Krishna gives a hierarchy. Below the soul is the intelligence. Intelligence is where basically it tells you this is what something is. This is the application of it. This is how it works. Then below that is the mind. The mind deals with sankalpa, vikalpa. It accepts and rejects. It emotionally feels these things, and it's a repository of everything, of all memories. Then from the mind, after the mind, is the senses. But there's a system of how it works. So if we identify with matter, right? We do something, we think we are the doers. What happens? It causes this identity for us not to be Krishna's servant, but for us to be the Lord and Master of nature, i.e. to accept this material identity. Then what happens? The intelligence will start giving you information about this material world, how to enhance your identity. If you do this, this is this. If you do that, this is this. So, and then what's going to be the next stage? The mind is going to start feeling this, emotionally feeling it and making decisions. Yes, I will do this. This will enhance my material identity. Then what's the next final result? The senses will start to work on those material impulses. So it talks about thinking, feeling, and willing. So that's what's happening here. So it's going from it really starts with the identity. So from the identity to the intelligence, to the mind, and then to the senses, and then that reinforces the material identity. But that's why Swami Bhuvamani says Krishna is the cause of everything. You're not the cause of everything. This person, your brother, died because Krishna wanted it to happen. So when Swami Bhuvamani hears this, he's like, well, yeah, exactly. Everything happens for a reason. Krishna wanted this to happen. So when he hears that, then he reinforces the identity that he's Krishna's servant. So like someone who is on that platform, and I'm not talking about a very advanced platform, but someone who acts on the platform of, I'm Krishna's servant. He chants Hare Krishna, he reads Prabhupada's books, Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, Chaitanya Charitamrita. He bows down to the deities, he worships the deities, he associates with the sadhus, he preaches Krishna consciousness. He gets that identity, I'm Krishna's servant. It's always been reminded to him. That's why Prabhupada says, we should always eat Krishna prasadam. We should try to limit what we hear from the material world. Try to live in a community of devotees, because that's reinforcing that identity. And when it reinforces that identity, then everything acts Krishna conscious. So let's say, just for example, it's Ekadashi. Yeah, and you're feeling hungry, and then you're outside, and you see something, and it's vegetarian, and you think, oh, let me take this, offer it to Krishna. But then the senses are attracted to it. Then what's going to happen? The intelligence is going to tell the mind, well, hang on a minute, it's Ekadashi today. This is not conducive to your Krishna consciousness. So then the mind's going to think, yes, that's correct. I make the decision not to do this. So then that reinforces the identity of you being Krishna servant. So this process is not linear. It's actually circular. It goes backwards and forwards. It's not like you're Krishna servant and it just goes down. It's going backwards and forwards. Everything you do in Krishna consciousness is affecting everything else. So when you're reading Prabhupada's books, it's purifying the intelligence. When you're eating Krishna prasadam, you're chanting Hare Krishna, you're paying obeisance to deities, that's affecting your senses. It's purifying your senses. And then the mind is storing all these impressions and it's making decisions in Krishna consciousness. And what's the result? It's reinforcing the idea that we are Krishna servant. So it's very dynamic, very powerful. Now, someone may say, well, we always hear it's about the mind, We've got to control the mind. Like Bhaktisiddhanta said, you've got to beat the mind with your shoes 100 times a day or something like that, So we don't need to worry about Krishna's identity, just control the mind. But the mind is like the battle arena. The mind is where things happen, right? But the mind only makes decisions according to what it's fed. And what it's fed is according to what it identifies with. Yes, the mind is where the arena is, the battle arena is really where everything happens. But for the mind to make the correct decision, you have to reinforce the identity of being a servant of Krishna. Then your intelligence will naturally be attracted to Krishna. It's like we see people who are in business, right? Like they naturally hover to people who are also in business. Like there's this thing now, like a lot of youngsters who are doing, they're making money on social media, they're opening up companies on Amazon, they're all going towards Miami, and they're all associating with each other. They're all reinforcing the identity of business, making money. Because your intelligence is saying to you, you're identifying with this as this entrepreneur. These are the options that will reinforce that. This is what's going to be attractive to you, right? He's not going to be attracted to being a chef or to being a gardener. He's going to be attracted to making money. So he's going to naturally associate with them. He may not like them in reality, but there's a common denominator there. So that's the way it works. So as devotees, we're naturally attracted to Krishna because we identify as Krishna servants. We're not going to be attracted to what's going on in the material world. Now, and also that also depends on your varna. So if you're a business, if you're a Vaishya, so naturally you're a businessman, the science of working, operating a business for Krishna, but doing it for Krishna, because that's your adhikar. Like someone who's in the other categories of the varnashram wouldn't be able to do that so well. He will apply his varna to Krishna's service and purify himself that way. That's what Devi Varnashram is. So this is really important. So therefore we should always be in association of devotees. And what does sadhu mean? Sadhu means to cut. He cuts our ego. He tells us this is wrong, this is good, this is what you should do. Like I remember when I first joined Krishna consciousness, I would have an emotional reaction to certain things. Like I would speak in a materialistic way. And I remember the devotees would correct me. And sometimes the correction was very painful for my ego. And the more they did it, the more it was getting reinforced that I should not act in this way. It's like a parent telling his child, you should behave in this way. You should be courteous. You should be respectful. You should be considerate of others. And this reinforces the samskaras. This creates samskaras, mental impressions in the mind. So it's like that. So when we're with devotees, that's the most powerful element to advancing Krishna consciousness. It's like we read of people who practice spirituality by themselves, like Bharat Maharaj, not Lord Ram's brother, but the Bharat Maharaj who was a king. He renounced his kingdom, and it's explained he was on the platform of Bhava Bhakti, which is one level before Prema Bhakti. And what happened? He became attached to a deer. He was practicing spirituality by himself. He wasn't associating with anyone. And there's different reasons given why he did that, but one of the reasons is because he didn't have association. So Krishna consciousness means we should be practicing in association. Chanting Hare Krishna means to chant in association, whether it's japa, whether it's kirtan, doing service. I was thinking about this pastime. I read about this pastime it's not in Leela Amrita, I don't think, but I've heard it. There was this man, Indian man, and he joined in Mayapur. And he never did any service. All he did was he was just chanting all the time. Every day he would chant for hours on end in a hut. And this is before Mayapur was developed. And all the devotees were enamored by him, They were like, wow, this guy he's an amazing devotee. He's like Haridas Thakur, right? He's chanting purely, he's doing this. He's definitely going back to Godhead. I wish we could chant like that. And he wasn't a follower of ISKCON, he was just associating. He wasn't initiated, nothing. And Prabhupada didn't give him any attention. Prabhupada just told the devotees, just carry on with your services. Then after a few weeks, months, one day this person disappeared. And devotees thought he went back to Godhead. Krishna came and took him back to Godhead. So anyway, then 6 months later, one devotee was traveling somewhere in India, and he stopped at a petrol station. And lo and behold, who did he see? He saw that guy there. He was working there. And he said to him, what happened? You was chanting Hare Krishna. What are you doing here? He said, in that 6 months, I did enough chanting. In that period, I did enough chanting. I don't need to do any more chanting. So he left. So this is the thing. It's like when you're chanting by yourself, you're not going to make much spiritual advancement because you don't have the other aspect. You're going to be attacked by the material energy, and it's going to reinforce that identity. You are not the servant of Krishna. You are yourself. And like he wasn't doing any service, this person. He's probably just having Krishna Prasadam and just chanting and not reading Prabhupada's books. And what happened? He fell away. So therefore, we have to be in the association of devotees. So like Swami Bhuvamanu, he's coming as a spiritual master. He's coming as a well-wisher. He's telling as a sadhu. He's telling Dhruva Maharaj, don't do this. This is not your dharma. Don't be attached. Krishna is the reason why your brother died. It happened for a reason. So then, when we see things in our lives, when things happen, whether it's good or bad, we should always see it as the mercy of Krishna. I hear of devotees, like senior devotees, they've arrived at the airport for a flight, and their flight got cancelled or delayed. So then some of them said I heard in a class, they said, I just used it as an opportunity to catch up on my reading of Prabhupada's books and studying and chanting, and just focusing on my plans for my services. So they used it in a positive way, because we're under the shelter of Krishna, we should always be thinking like that. That Krishna is the cause. Everything happens to us. We're under the shelter of Krishna. So if just going back to the example about the mind and such and the other elements. So we should think of the identity as the king, right? Then the intelligence is like the minister, like the prime minister. The mind as the messenger, and the senses as the citizen. So the king makes a decree. This is going to be law. The intelligence, he creates drafts. He creates laws based on that, documents. He gives that to the messenger. The messenger takes it and distributes it to the citizens, and the citizens act on it. So depending on the quality of your identity, whether it's material or spiritual, the other elements will act accordingly. So it's like an operating system if you think about it. It's like, it's like if it's corrupted, it won't work, right? So when the computer crashes, what do? You restart the computer, right? So that's what sometimes we have to do. We have to restart the computer. And what's that restarting is the process of Krishna consciousness, is detaching ourselves from material life, and just being absorbed. But if the operating system is working perfectly, then everything else works nicely. So Prabhupada said Krishna consciousness is very simple. He didn't say it's easy. He said it's simple for the simple. So if we do the simple things, the things that Prabhupada did, then we won't fall under this control, under this illusion of Maya. So, if you read the Gita, there's many verses Krishna says, he talks about this in different ways. He talks about the senses, he talks about the mind. And it's interesting when in 6th chapter, Arjuna says to Krishna, after Krishna's described the Ashtanga Yoga system to control the mind, he said, the mind is too difficult to control. It's more difficult than controlling the wind. And and I think about Arjuna. Arjuna was a person of the Vedic time. He was trained. He had sense control. Even he couldn't do it. He couldn't just jump straight to the mind. So what did Krishna say later on in the Gita? He says, Sarva dharman parichaja mam ekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayish ami masucha. Surrender unto me. Surrender unto someone means you're becoming their servant, right? If you surrender to Krishna, that means you're Krishna's servant. Jivada Swarupoy Krishna Nityadas. And when you do that, Krishna will protect you. He will deliver you. And that's the ultimate conclusion of the Gita. So anyway, I'll stop here. If anyone has a question or comment. Anyone like to make a comment? Oh, would you like to add anything? Anything from your realization of practicing Krishna consciousness? Mm. 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 Yeah. Mm. 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 Yes. Mm. 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 That's true. So Prabhupada says I think it's in Chaitanya Charitamrita, he says, I'm right, or in a conversation, it's related, I've got reference somewhere. It says, Prabhupada says, I'm writing all these books so you can become Mahabhagavats. Mahabhagavad is like a very advanced devotee, like an advanced devotee. Prabhupada says it very clearly. I'm not here for you just to do chant, have a good time. The whole point is for you to become Mahabhagavats, to go back to Godhead. And Prabhupada says, he spoke about, boiling the milk, becoming Krishna conscious, reading his books, being absorbed. But Prabhupada said, do it in a qualified, step-by-step way. And Prabhupada said it many times. He said, there was a pastime, I think it was Tamal Krishna Maharaj, where he wanted to just chant in Mayapur. I think it's him, from what I remember. And Prabhupada said, I can't remember the word. I'm just paraphrasing. He said, first do the work, then you can come and chant. So the whole life, if you think about it. Yes, that's it. That's right. And Prabhupada, and so if there's a verse. It says that Ante Narayan Smriti. The whole purpose of life is to practice remembering Krishna. And that. So, like, in Indian communities, they generally become very religious at the end of life. They're somewhat pious from a karmic perspective. They go temple on Diwali, Sundays, but they don't really, they probably do puja at home, but their focus is not really the demigods or whoever they're worshipping. It's just more like a pious thing. Then at the end, they try to become more spiritual, like. I remember when I was in India and I met this family. They were like elderly couple. There was about 3-4 couples. And they were doing something called a Char Dham Yatra. Char Dham is you go to the 4 holy places in the corners of India. So Badrinath, Jagannath Puri, Sri Rangam, and Dwarka. These are the 4 places they usually go to. And they do it at the end like that. For them, that's like the ultimate parikram, by doing that. So, but the thing is, like, and if you think about it, it's then at the end of life you're the hope is you think of God, but that's kind of hard. You have to think of God, to love God. You have to cultivate. It's a cultivation. It's an action. You have to remember something. It's like even in material things, because I'm a tutor by profession, so I tell my students, you have to practice these questions to become perfect in it, to develop intuition. You can't just do it one day before the exam and hope to pass. It doesn't really work like that. And some people can, but most people can't. So it's cultivation, and Prabhupada talks about cultivation. And as you're cultivating, Krishna talks about in the Gita. He talks about Buddhi Yoga. So I've had many definitions of Buddhi Yoga. I had one definition which basically explained that there's two levels. One Buddhi Yoga is when you're cultivating knowledge of Krishna. And you're acting on that knowledge, right? As practical application of that knowledge. Then the high level is in chapter 10 where Krishna says, Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam. I give you the knowledge personally so you can come to me. So as we're advancing, Krishna starts to give you that intelligence. That do this. You can associate with this person who creates opportunities for us. So he's helping us along the way. And that's kind of like proof that as we're advancing in Krishna consciousness. So that should be the goal of Krishna consciousness, And like I was speaking about it last time, but there's a very interesting quote. I think it's by Gaurkishore Das Babji Maharaj. I may be wrong, but it says, the best bhajanandi is the Gostiyanandi who preaches. So Gostiyanandi is a preacher, and the bhajanandi is someone who's absorbed in his chanting. So because we follow Prabhupada's mood, Prabhupada wanted us to preach. But if we're preaching, then our absorption in Krishna becomes more perfect, more mature. And then, like he wanted, then we'll become qualified to go back to Godhead. I just want to say one thing before I stop, because it's quite interesting. I heard this. So, like Krishna says in the Gita, if you think of me at the time of death, you go back to Godhead. So, there's different categories of devotees. And, there's a quote by Prabhupada where it says, some of my disciples may go to the heavenly planets. I read that and I was a bit shocked by that. It's explained. So, if you think of Krishna at the time of death and you still have material attachment, because you're a devotee, you'll be born in your next life in a rich family, in an aristocratic family, right? But you'll have some inclination towards Krishna. If you're more advanced, then you'll be born, but not enough to go back to Godhead. Then you'll be born in a Vaishnav Brahmin family, and then you just take off from where you left off very easily. And the highest one is when you think, because you've cultivated throughout your high life, then when you die, you think of Krishna, and then you go straight back to Godhead. So again, it's qualification, and qualification comes by cultivation, and we get that from Prabhupada's books. So anyway, I'll stop here. So thank you very much. Thank you for your comment, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Shri Radha Govinda ki jai. Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi. Hari 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 Bol.